All right, welcome. Some more people arriving. Welcome. All right, welcome everyone. I think we can go ahead and get started. Welcome to Messy Conversations. This is our penultimate Messy Conversation of spring. So we will be off next week for the holiday, and then we'll be returning June 2nd for our final Messy Conversation of spring quarter. Today, we are celebrating May 19th, what would be the 100th birthday of Malcolm X. And the Messy Conversations team thought this would be a good opportunity to come together and basically share the influence of Malcolm X on our educational experiences, our thinking, and we have a few short excerpts from videos that we wanted to share. And then we also are very interested in opening up the space to suggestions and contributions from everyone in the community on what Malcolm X means to you, what his teaching and thinking has meant to you. And let's see, did I miss anything? I think that should cover it. So we'll have two short videos and then open up the room.
Thank you. Thank you, Isaac.
So Rosa.
Welcome, everyone. We selected a couple of clips from videos. This is the first one is going to be just a couple of minutes from a Providence interview, Malcolm X in 1961. I'm posting the chat description of that video, and I am because I'm going to show one after another. I'm going to post also in the chat the second interview. The second interview that is in 1965 in the Osborne ballroom when he in 1965 about 6 years before he was killed. When I show this, the first one we call our attention the idea of a second-class citizenship that today is very relevant as it was relevant back then. So it's as though history has the weight in today as much as to yesterday. And the other one, we found that the idea of the international struggle, looking at the international landscape as a scenario of a conflict that is not just domestic, and that vision that in the 60s that was not that common in the movements of they were like a very internal here in the US. So those two elements play out today in our contemporary history, and we wanted just to share with you, just to open conversation, see what you think about the rest of the session. And with that, I'm gonna shut up and I'm gonna start sharing my screen and the videos for you to think by yourselves. So first one, 1961.
Hey, Sweaty. Sweetie, you good?
Someone stole my Old Spice antiperspirant.
I'm gonna skip this. And I'm gonna come back again here. I apologize, guys. Sometimes with YouTube, you know, we need to put up with sound. I'm gonna stop for a moment because it's playing out.
Rosa, I think you skipped to the next video instead
yeah,
of play.
that's exactly what I did, trying to avoid the commercial. Okay. Yeah, when you try to prepare a lot, then it happens. I'm gonna let the commercial go if I have no choice. Okay. Sharing again, take 2. This is gonna work now.
Note the next button.
Today, in our discussion of minority
Okay.
groups, we have with us
I keep messing up.
could you
by a University of Michigan professor. It was published by the University of Michigan Press. It cost $20. And in my opinion, every white person in America, as well as black person in America, should read this book. They would get a better understanding of the machinery that was used to strip the black man who was brought to the West from the East of his culture, of his accomplishments, of his civilization, and relegated to the role of an animal. It tells how he was dehumanized. In fact, it actually spells out the crime that was committed by the slave trader, the slave maker, and the slave master, which is primarily responsible for the condition and the race problem that exists in America today. And one of the best statements in the book, in my opinion, is this professor or scientist points out that second-class citizenship is nothing but a modern version of slavery, which means that according to his definition, slavery still exists. 20 million black people here in America are still slaves. The Emancipation Proclamation and the Civil War were fought for nothing. And because it was approached in that day in a hypocritical way, although Lincoln was faced with the problem, all of the presidents since him, including Kennedy today, is still faced with the same problem, because no honest effort has ever been made to solve it, especially by the politicians. No honest effort has ever.
That was the
Ladies and gentlemen, good
concept
evening.
of,
Barry Gray in the WMCA studio.
concept of second-class citizenship, and I'm gonna go with the other one. Again, I'm gonna stop sharing when I find it. Just think about that, guys. Second-class citizenship, everywhere these days. I have this here. Okay. By any means necessary. That's the other video that I posted. I'm gonna post again those descriptions for those that just arrived. I'll play this here.
Of our organization is to start right here in Harlem, which has the largest concentration of people of African descent that exists anywhere on this earth. There are more Africans here in Harlem than exist in any city on the African continent, because that's what you and I are, Africans. The Charter of the United Nations, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the Constitution of the United States, and the Bill of Rights are the principles in which we believe, and that these documents, if put into practice, represent the essence of mankind's hopes and good intentions, desirous that all Afro-American people and organizations should henceforth unite so that the welfare and well-being of our people will be assured. We are resolved to reinforce the common bond of purpose between our people by submerging all of our differences and establishing non-sectarian constructive programs for human rights. We hereby present this charter. Number one, the establishment. The Organization of Afro-American Unity shall include all people of African descent in the Western Hemisphere. In essence, what it is saying, instead of you and me running around here seeking allies in our struggle for freedom, in the Irish neighborhood or the Jewish neighborhood or the Italian neighborhood, we need to
That was one, guys. Can we continue? So those two clips, I'm gonna put them again in the chat for descriptions for those that were not here before. Here they are. And we open the conversation, questions, comments. Today's messy conversation is different in that way that it's more our own memories or the information, the way we value this interesting historical figure that had so many roles, so many facets. The more I learned when we were preparing for this, and our team was bringing up topics, I was thinking all these different roles in one single person. I never saw it that way. So let's see what you guys think. Anyone? So how would you go? What is the next thing, Asa? What I'm not seeing, or
Yeah, so well, we wanted to open it up to either comments on the By Any Means Necessary clip that we saw or the interview piece, and then also asking, we were hoping members of the community could bring pieces to share today if they have favorite quotes, feelings or thoughts about Malcolm, how he may have influenced your own thinking and beliefs. So really opening it up to anything and everything Malcolm X on his 100th birthday today. And I see Ben.
Hi, I'd like to share from his autobiography. There's a piece from that has always stuck with me, that has really been a reminder to myself as to when I am speaking, to remember on whose behalf am I speaking, understanding my lane. There's, I think there can be a fine line there. And the piece that I like to revisit has, for context, goes back to his Black nationalist organization, the Organization of Afro-American Unity, which was at that time not for white people to join. And it is clear, he makes it clear why. Hang with me for a second while I try to read this. He says, I mean nothing against any sincere whites when I say that as members of Black organizations, generally whites' very presence subtly renders the Black organization automatically less effective. Even the best white members will slow down, and I'll use the word African Americans, discovery of what they need to do, and particularly of what they can do for themselves, working by themselves among their own kind and their own communities. Now, before that, he did write, and I think this is most important for me, for many of us, particularly now more than ever, where the really sincere white people have to go to do their proving, quote, of themselves is not among the Black victims, but out on the battle lines of where America's racism really is, and that's in their own home communities. America's racism is among their own fellow whites. That's where the sincere whites who really mean to accomplish something have got to work. So that, I felt, that's always stuck with me. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Ben. Okay. Great. And I'll mention that I also was introduced to really the thinking Malcolm X, reading the autobiography early in high school, I believe, and There are scenes from that have certainly stuck with me. And when I came to Antioch, one of the things I would always do in working with undergrad students introducing the library was actually play a short clip from Spike Lee's Malcolm X film. There's a scene in the library from the autobiography where Malcolm is tasked with reading the dictionary and looking into the etymology of words and seeing the way that white supremacy and race has shaped our language, and comparing white and black terms and the associations of what those terms are. And I've always thought that was such a perfect example of research and context, and the way that digging a bit deeper into things we think we already know can kind of expand our worldview and unveil like deeper systems at work. And so that was something that stuck with me in high school. And then now I still use it in talking about the library. Yes. Mihi, would you like to share?
Oh, I also read the autobiography in high school, but we also have all the new students read this chapter as part of their first course at Antioch in undergraduate studies. And it's always such a powerful discussion on so many levels. And it reminds me of how brilliant he was, because it speaks in so many levels about sort of history and kind of theories around oppression, and also about kind of about literacy, about whose history it is. And it's an inspiring story for anybody across any of those dimensions.
Mihi, Ben just posted the dictionary scene in YouTube. Does that refer to what you were talking about earlier, Ben, or is a new piece?
I think that's the scene that Aces saw.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
One thing I'm struck by just hearing you all talk is I grew up in Texas and like in Houston, so a blue city, whatever that means. And just hearing you all talk about like your high school experience of being introduced to his autobiography, I'm just struck by how far that is from my own high school experience. Growing up in Texas, and I'm very young. I'm 28 right now. So like we're talking a little bit more than a decade ago. Still like not a single mention of Malcolm X's work in truly any of my schooling in public education in Texas. And I just think about like ideologically what that means, especially as we think about by any means necessary, and thinking today like that the peaceful silent protest is criminalized. And I guess I'm just thinking about like what are the boundaries of the container by which we talk about these things. And it's disappointing. It's a very light word for, I guess, what I feel. Hearing that his work was even introduced to young minds in other parts of the country, and just the way that it is, intentionally safeguarded from young minds in parts of the country that are perhaps like most continually impacted by like continuing effects of slavery. So that's bad.
Yeah, thank you, Sian. I should mention, I don't believe it was actually assigned as like a course book, but when we got to choose. But I think it is, I know at Antioch, yeah, incoming undergraduates read portions of it, and definitely a enduring work of his. And I did want to also read the comment from David in the chat, who is a bit under the weather today and asked me to apologize for him, although I don't think he needs to apologize for that. But I'll read what he writes here. There are many things I admire about Malcolm and that I've learned from him. The first one I'll share for today is that I really admire how Malcolm continually unfolded, never settled, challenged himself and his beliefs, and allowed himself to change and grow, all guided by his internal compass that pointed towards his profound belief in the value and human beingness of Black folk. And I think anyone who traces the evolution of Malcolm's thought and work can see that it was never settled in one specific thing. And even, from his name to his affiliations and organizing work, there were always kind of evolving aims and goals. And David, I don't know if you have anything else to add in the chat. But I also see Stephanie has something here if you would like to share.
I will. Hi, everyone. Y'all don't want to see me now, so I'll be happy to be off camera. But for me, it was his words about the most disrespected person in America is the Black woman, the most unprotected person in America is the Black woman, the most neglected person in America is the Black woman. And I remember reading it in graduate school and just couldn't fully comprehend it. I think growing up on the South Side of Chicago, so much was poured into me of being very proud of who I was and having many examples, that it wasn't really until I stepped outside of that bubble or in that cocoon that I really started to understand why my community girded me like they did. And I think daily I have examples that unfortunately affirm Malcolm's words. And I think where we all saw it play out very hauntingly was during the presidential race, and when we looked at Kamala Harris and what she endured and experienced. According to American standards, she had reached the pinnacle of following all of what is prescribed to be levels to reach success, and yet somehow she was degraded regularly, and even now of having not won that particular election. So I'm very leaned into that, and I think I was talking recently to other colleagues here at Antioch and thinking about the 92% of Black women that were supportive of her election, and we still are, leaning into no matter how much power and intention you have behind it, there is that reality and our intention to just care for one another very deeply, because we know that the odds are against us.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. You just reminded me of a wonderful piece that I read yesterday in the New York Times about the bronze sculpture that is intentionally unassuming, depicting an anonymous Black woman, casually dressed with a neutral expression on her face and her hands on her hips, and it's titled "Grounded in the Stars." And it's a huge 12-foot bronze statue. And it's elevating this idea, exactly what you were talking about. It's as though it's like almost for this birthday.
That's right.
It's amazing. I don't know if those that have access to the New York Times, and I hope most people could have access to that. This is the.
Thank you so much, Rosa, for lifting that up. Yes, my daughter lives there, and I've told her, I said, I have to come back to see it. She was like, you're not seeing me? I'm like, yeah, you too, but I want to see, I want to see the sculpture in person.
It's remarkable.
It is.
Right. So, yeah. So, sorry for the detour because
Oh, no, I think
wherever
that's
we were
wonderful.
going. Yeah. They have more people in the chat. Asa, there's other people in the chat that I don't want to ignore.
I just had to do my obligatory plug that
Okay.
we
Yes.
have a
Sure.
full New York Times access through the library.
Okay.
I think did we miss anyone in the chat? I think
No.
yeah. That's all.
No, just keep admiring that statue.
I did see that Jacqueline Rose was on. I don't mean to call you out, but I wanted to mention I was just doing some Googling and the connection of if you type in Malcolm X and Antioch, I wanted to see, if he ever spoke or if there were any connections, and it brought up an article about Jacqueline Rose who mentions Malcolm X quote, and I'll put that in the chat if you're from Common Thread. Yeah, I thought that was cool.
You got me, Asa. I was trying. I'm in my car driving along, and or I should say, my husband's riding along, and I was sitting here just listening to what everyone was saying, and it's very profound, especially the first young lady. I'm sorry, I couldn't see your name is Stephanie. I read your notes. And what we Malcolm X kind of was like my mom's go-to. If there was anyone that was going to be quoted in the house consistently, it was going to be Malcolm X, for the sake of strength and also education, and for the most part collaboration, because I don't know, everybody's quoting the autobiography, and another strong mention of Malcolm X is in Maya Angelou's All God's Children Need Walking Shoes, and it was after he was contemplating his leadership, and he had gone to Ghana and reflected on his life and where it was going and how to accomplish the goals that he wanted for, I would say, for his people, of course, but on a national and a global level, it looked a lot different after his travels, and that broad scope that he brought back after that time meant a great deal to everyone, because everyone knows that it affects not just us in the United States as far as oppression and the process of eliminating it. The machine is a well-oiled machine, but it's a machine that lives in every corner of the world, of the globe. And so I always thought of him as just this bigger idea, this bigger person, because he was saving us and he was saving our neighbors and he was saving the population on this planet. And we missed out on it. We missed out on it because of other people that decided they wanted to strike him down. And that's the unfortunate part, to know that he could have impacted us if he had been here longer and our thinking, and then to push his ideas and his hard work down. It's sad in this time. It's really sad in this time, because we had such strong leaders like him. And that was the point of it all. And so, I don't know, it's a lot to think about. It's a lot to carry. And it's a lot to pick up the torch as Antiochians, because that's why we're here. That's why we chose this campus, because we want to be a part of that process. So, or at least I can speak for myself. That's I should say, because I want to continue to do the work. I think it's important. So, thank you, Asa, for bringing it up. It is part of my tagline on my emails. It's part of my interviews. It's Malcolm X is a strong part of me, and I'm grateful for that. So thank you.
That's wonderful. Yes, I'm so glad you could make it today. I don't think we could have this without you here. I loved the opening quote of that article. Education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. And I think we have a lot of these old quote slogans at Antioch, but that could certainly serve as one of them as well, to go along with Horace Mann. That idea of a passport to the future, and that through education, I think this ties into to his travels and the way he globalized the struggle in that way and connected to global struggles of people around the world, and that idea of a passport as well, like connecting these distant people to a shared goal and vision. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jacqueline.
Thank you.
I don't want to talk too much, so I'll
Can I go back to the comment that Cien you made about such a different experience of having access to this information so available as opposed to not depending on which part of the country you are located? And I'm asking that for someone that wouldn't grow up in the US, what would be the encounter with information about Malcolm X in the US, depending on where you know people or you land people? Like this big void, I just got very caught up with this idea of having a void of information so significantly built in a way that Jacqueline was talking about, very well-oiled gap. So it feels like a very, very, very sharp. So I don't know if I'm not asking a question. I think I just like sharing my thoughts about the comment of having that absence. That's erasure.
This is Elaine. I wanted to say that I'm really connecting with Stephanie was saying and Jacqueline. And one of the things I've always been so impressed about in studying and researching Malcolm is that Malcolm was able to relate to African Americans, people that in the urban areas of Harlem, Los Angeles, other cities, Chicago. And I think it had a lot to do with his family background, nationalist background. His parents were Garveyites. Then the time he spent in the nation really was an extension of that. And I think he really believed in a nation, and a nation was part of the development. And then his whole international specter after he left the nation, even that year of traveling, that brought in that whole international fame that I think that he appealed to so many. And Jacqueline is right. He didn't have a lot of time left after that, but I've always wondered what the appeal was to many young people, even today. I mean, there's so many aspects of his life that we find even in hip hop culture, in our contemporary music, even in history. And I think it had a lot to do with how he saw the world, the whole concepts of self-determination, that he felt that Black people had a connection to Africa, the importance of education. To him, to be prepared as a passport meant a certain type of education that he got really from the Nation of Islam. So I think it was a combination. And I think David was spoken at earlier, how he kept evolving. And I think that that is what really that has impressed and keeps him in the eye. One of my favorite quotes, he spoke at Harvard Law School at a forum in December 1964. And he was very concerned about the imagery and the images of Black people all over the world. He said, when you let yourself be influenced by images created by others, you'll find that oftentimes the one who creates those images can use them to mislead and misuse you. I leave you with that because some of the images that we see today, and I think what Rosa is touching on, is the miseducation, and the CN is talking about the things that have been kept from us about our history and our connections to beyond this country. Really has been very impactful. And I think that we find ourselves now needing a Malcolm to help us figure this out.
Thank you, Lane. Thank you so much. And by the way, I have these resonances of the value, something that we discuss a lot in our classrooms, that is a principle of inclusion and respect. That is the idea of self-representation, to have the right to represent oneself as opposed to others drawing a picture of who you are, who you're supposed to be. And these days, I think Malcolm X would be really shocked that these days, with misinformation and disinformation and all these activities that happen, is so common for people to be misrepresented or vilified, stigmatized, and just call for that attention about self-respect. That is what I'm hearing or picking up from what you said, Elaine. That is a wonderful idea of standing for this, for your own self-representation, and don't allow anyone to describe you beyond who you are. So it's a beautiful element. Thank you for that reminder. And David, you said something here. I'm gonna read it. When I was a kid, we did have to read a couple of chapters of his autobiography. The context lesson was to teach us the difference between integrationists and separatists. And that if we didn't work with the nonviolent integrationists, we'd have to deal with the by any means necessary separatists. So even though we had to read a little Malcolm, there was a political agenda to this assignment. Wow. Cian, would you speak to that? Your yes?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, not much else necessarily to say at the moment, but yeah, that like I said, like there was never any reference to his work, but like looking back, I can see, I guess, a like indirect pattern of amplifying, I mean, I guess like specifically amplifying Dr. King's work. And it's very, it's an uncomfortable thing to like consider, I guess, those two voices in a way indirectly kind of like being put up against each other by, like entirely white public schooling that I went to, as far as like teachers that I had in my direct classrooms. But I do think that was kind of like the undercurrent of messaging that I received. Um, and I just think about how that continues today, and yeah, and maybe even like progresses even more um directly in that direction of nonviolence being promoted.
Okay. Well, Sarah Beth has gifted us with a cascade of wonderful ideas and images. Could you represent yourself, Sarah Beth?
Thank you, Rosa. Yeah, I had, when we talked about this messy conversation, Asa's library story reminded me of my own, and it's a little bit different, but I did find inspiration in the library, and not because people were talking about Malcolm X, but I found a book there that started this curiosity for me, and I really wanted to learn more about his life and who he connected himself with that really fueled his curiosity and led him to so many places. And the photos that I've put here, one of my favorite parts of his experience was his travel to Mecca and just his embrace of culture and learning and ritual that he reflected in these photos, I believe. And I also just really love the picture with I think those are his sisters and his mother. And there are more siblings than are in this photo, but I believe that is him, the baby. And also this picture of um, of Malcolm X with his daughters and Muhammad Ali. And I think that the most powerful piece of that learning at that time in my life was really about the role of the white church, which I was raised in, uh, and how the white church could have joined and helped this fight so much. And through my reading of his inspiration and others in the civil rights movement, I really wanted that and still want that. So I know there are many of us who learned through that set of lenses, which I had to learn to take off and focus differently. And also, I recognize that that religious upbringing I had gave me some ways in that still influence me. So. I should also say that my father's sister got to know Muhammad Ali quite a bit, and so I also really love that photo of the two of them And I know that there's a complicated history there. But being from Chicago, my whole family, I think that was a call to many people who were really obsessed with the work of Muhammad Ali. And I think the two fighters in that photo just remind me that there's lots of kinds of fights, and our internal power is very strong if we focus our values.
Lisa, would you want to comment further on your response to Ciel?
Yeah, I was just thinking about maybe the way Malcolm X's legacy has kind of lived on, past his time and been presented to or absorbed by new generations. And I do think in my educational experience and just in pop culture generally, there was often this duality set up that's been raised already of Dr. King's kind of nonviolent, peaceful approach and Malcolm X's by any means necessary, more militant or separatist approach. And that I think has been kind of interpolated or updated in different artworks and just in pop culture generally. I was thinking specifically of Do the Right Thing, another Spike Lee film, which I think really kind of captures that debate or dichotomy, in the main character played by Spike Lee, who, has to decide how to react to his employer. Well, I won't, describe the whole film, but what's the right thing, and there's a character who wanders the streets basically with photos of Malcolm and Martin, and is saying Malcolm Martin. And so that, I think, beyond Malcolm X's works or words themselves, like, it has taken on a kind of larger cultural significance in what it represents for movement building and strategy and tactics. And I think that's an important part of his legacy as well. And also the influence on hip hop. And, I don't think there's anyone who wasn't a musician who's maybe sampled as much as Malcolm X. And, you often hear clips of speeches, especially in like Public Enemy, early 90s hip hop, definitely. Yeah, thanks, Rosa. Yeah, if anyone's not seen Do the Right Thing, highly recommend.
I was impersonating you for a moment, Lisa. Yeah, but I wanted to bring up something again. You don't grow up in this cultural context. This appreciation for guns that is very popular here in America. It's interesting that yes, it's very popular as long as you have particular racial composition. But you have another particular racial composition and you love arms or think about defending yourself, that's not acceptable. So I don't know if I'm stepping into a very, very muddy waters with this comment.
I love that you said that because I was sitting here thinking the same thing. Because when I think of Malcolm X, or when I think of the movement overall, because I went to a high school where the Black kids were getting attacked, and it was happening so violently and frequently that the Nation of Islam did come to our school to escort students to school and to help out and to counsel us. And it wasn't violence versus not violence. It wasn't to be violent at all. It was to understand the fact that you do, like you said, have to protect yourself. And with that comes a responsibility. And to understand, even in the words of Malcolm X, and in situations such as that, to know that you have somebody in your corner that is willing to protect you to the same extent of what you're expressing, Rosa, about others having the ability to bear arms and others not, and how that vocabulary changes means a lot. When all in all, it shouldn't exist in the first place. That having to go to that extent shouldn't exist in the first place. And that's what I always found very unique about Malcolm X, because it was about a sense of safety, and a safety that we should be able to provide for ourselves in any circumstance. And I find it very interesting that people take the time to ensure that that's not available to you, or there's the opportunity to go against it and strike against it, and they will take it. So I'm very glad that you pointed that out, because I know for high school students that are just trying to get to class and get their education and live their life and go on to college and do the best that they can with their own, they shouldn't have to be escorted by what some people would consider a militia, other people would consider a form of safety. And that has been recreated in this time. There are schools and communities in the South and on the East Coast that are having to do the same thing right now. And that's odd. It shouldn't exist at this time. But yeah, it's all interesting.
Miki, would you speak to your comment as well? Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you so much.
So people were talking about what they learned in school and what the narrative was. And I was just mentioning about how I did take a class that talked about how that it's easy to paint those kind of good cop, bad cop kinds of narratives around the two of them, but that in reality, as towards the end of both of their lives, that Malcolm went to Mecca and came back and had a kind of different perspective. And I think Dr. King also was realizing that it wasn't so. I think about Dr. King often is painted like Rosa Parks, like, oh, she was just too tired and didn't want to move to the back of the bus. And I think sometimes it's easy to think about Dr. King in the same way, like, oh, peaceful nonviolence, and that's all he stood for, but that he definitely was pushing harder, and that the more the two of them were coming together, that people thought, well, now we're really in trouble. If the two of them unite and that there's no way to pit those two against each other, that would become a problem. And so that was certainly one of the reasons why people think that they were assassinated.
Yeah. Tom. Asa, you already spoke to this, right?
Yes.
Ben, would you represent your comment yourself?
Which comment was that?
The from Tupac's Word of Wisdom.
Oh yeah, when we were talking about pop culture and music and in film, I just wanted to add early Tupac albums, particularly Tupacalypse Now. I just copy and pasted some lyrics that I remember from the song Words of Wisdom that's relevant to Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, and um how what was being taught in school for him at that time. So it's right there.
Thank you. And Sarah, but you're sharing this speech in Cleveland?
Yeah, I think for me, reading that transcript just reminds me of that time and that history that is now repeating. And there are so many examples in his speeches that we can reflect on at this moment in history and see so many similar parallels, issues and challenges and failures, all of it.
I don't want to sound like esoteric or anything like that, but if Malcolm could be here telling us, like, what do you do with this context that we're experiencing right now? I keep thinking about what David you mentioned at the beginning of the conversation. That is this ability to shift, to don't hang on, or what is like a hold inflexibly to something, but keep evolving or keep moving your position, keep learning, keep I don't know if the word evolving, I don't like it, but it's more like a keep shifting, keep moving. And I think that is something that is inspiring in this birthday that we are celebrating, the idea of you don't have to stay rigid with one idea, with one set of values. You can expand, you can reconsider, you can change your mind, you can do things. So I don't know, that's just my idea. But Sarah, you have a richer idea here that I'm not seeing. Yeah. Could you speak to that, Sarah?
Yeah, along the lines of what you brought up and what David had mentioned, there's so many transformations in his life. And even when I was a kid, there were a lot fewer books and materials to look at, but you could see all of these different transformations in his life that caused him to ask new questions and put himself in different situations and connect with new people. And he still held so tightly to his values and would not compromise on those, but he was open in so many ways to experience and to revision, which I love.
Thank you, Sarah. We have reached the 5 p.m. indicating that our conversation, the formal part of this conversation is over, and now we start one that is more relaxed. Keep transforming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa, for being here. Thank you, Taji. Thank you. David.
I can read.
Yes,
David's
please,
comment.
please.
So David said, Max Weber, a social theorist, made a helpful distinction between the quote prophetic and the priestly, and some people find that a helpful way of thinking about Malcolm, the prophetic voice, and Martin, the priestly voice. Both are necessary, and interestingly, Malcolm the prophet influenced Martin to say, quote, we need to be proud of our Blackness. And Martin influenced Malcolm to say, it's a sin not to be registered to vote. So yeah, the way they complemented and played off.
But that's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much, David. Oh.
And then I just mentioned that, you know, he really only had a little over a decade between his release from prison and his assassination. And yeah, what he accomplished
Wow.
in that time.
Sage, would you represent your thought, Does?
Team Sage said they cannot use audio today, but they're happy to be listening.
Okay, I don't know. Yeah. So Sage is reminding us that his life legacy definitely makes think of Ansaldua's note that the ability to respond is what is meant by responsibility. Oh, sorry. Now I see the audio. I was rushing. Thank you for bringing up and connecting Ansaldua. Within our messiness, we do try to find like a common thread between our sessions sometimes.
David asks if Malcolm has come up in any of your classes here at Antioch. I think we have a few students still on, so not in CNs. I know, like Mihi said, for the undergrad students in that previously educational foundations, now transformative ed, there's a little Malcolm.
Well, this was not in like it was like a brief reference. We were in the second or third week when we talk about the role of Black community in art, activist and social justice class, and there was a reference to Malcolm's persona, probably from the videos. That is the information that people might have about him, people, contemporary people, that would refer to his elegance as almost a work of art, the elegance of moving hands, the somehow like a performance, the persona, the presentation of the persona, the scenic presence. Yeah, that's the word. Scenic presence as a work of art. And it was mentioned not used as a case study, but it was mentioned as something that we could be considered activist art. The way you present yourself with that such a powerful scenic presence. Yeah, Mihi, thank you for for the question, because I almost forgot that comment from class. I thought it was Mihi, was David. So today I'm reading everything upside down. Sorry. Uh, Elaine's watch class too. Elaine's watching Black Network TV recently. Yes, that has been shown there. Thank you, Sage. Sienna was mentioned in your classes?
Yeah, actually at both universities I went to for undergraduate, luckily. I'm very much struggling to recall the actual lesson because it was times ago and I was taking too many classes at once, but I know I can recall a day in a performance art class that we talked about Malcolm X, and I really wish I could recall the exact connection, but I mean, let your minds wander. I think there's a lot of ways that there could be an interesting overlap there.
Mhm.
And I'm sorry, I was actually asking my husband if he had Malcolm X in his class, and that was the first message that went through in the chat. Is that
Yes.
he's from Kansas and he didn't have any in his undergrad classes. But of course, I did put in there that because I had taken several African American studies courses in undergrad with Dr. Gill, and also when I was at UC Riverside, we did discuss Malcolm X quite a bit, especially as a form of theory. And funny enough, also the same way that Stephanie had brought up in relationship to women and what we were asking for ourselves, and women that were also involved in the civil rights movement that weren't as well known as Malcolm X. So yes, it was nice to be here today and to hear what everyone else had to say. So thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Sarah Beth, you posted, what did you were posting? Women that shape men.
When I was looking at his Malcolm's connections to his faith, I was learning about the influence of his sisters, and I found some of these links when I was exploring those relationships of influence, and just really how many women in his life, especially his sisters, just inspired him to follow the path that he, I wouldn't say every step exactly the same, but definitely there are, it's almost like floodlights coming from their experience to inspire his path. And so because there's so much ritual expression in the experience of Mecca, I wonder if some of that expression that is almost like a performance was coming. His sister, I believe his first sister was, she was quite a bit older, and she was already very active as a Muslim. So it's a beautiful, many rituals are very beautiful, and also depending on where in the world people are, those rituals can look very different, even though they are very expressive. So I think just his openness. And also at that time, the number of Muslims in the US was very small compared to now. So to be connected to people before he went, I think, would have probably exposed him to a lot of experiences that validated that quest for him. it's interesting to think about.
I know also that even in the Muslim world, it was quite a big deal that he visited Mecca, and there weren't many Americans or um, or people from non-Muslim majority countries who would make the Hajj and visit. And so that was kind of a profound moment in terms of like relations between the US and the Muslim world.
But again, as someone that wouldn't grow up in the popular culture of that era, or in the popular culture of any era here growing up, right? I'm thinking about how the encounters with the non-Western world, like from the Beatles or from those other people that were like more like fads, they were publicized as very glamorous, like a very glamorous going to India, very glamorous. And this other one is kind of obscured in a way. It somehow is presented as something strange or something suspicious or something. So it's again the double standard of the capital, and depending on where you are, you can use certain tools and or others. The double standard again and again is remarkable. I don't know if the word is remarkable, but it's just very, yeah, Orientalism. Yes. Yes.
I also remember just reading that it was for him in Mecca, there were white people, blonde-haired, blue-eyed white people that he was really sitting with and praying with. And he said, this wouldn't happen in the US. And so just that focus and then his words about the building of supremacy that needs to be taken down and how it lives in so many places and can look very different, but it has the same harmful result.
Well, I'm excited to have this new page where we have a lot of these resources collected. Yeah, it'd be good to return to.
Yes, good to return to.
And yes, David mentions the split with Elijah Muhammad, and the
Weber,
the role of women in the Nation of Islam as well. And then I'll just mention I also posted a link to a Democracy Now! Piece from today, which featured one of his daughters, and they are demanding that the US government release files related to Malcolm X's assassination, the involvement of the CIA and FBI.
Oh, Ace, I was just getting ready to hang up. There was a documentary that was, because there was a gentleman that's been researching it for a long time. I can't remember it, but you probably know what it was.
Yeah, I think it was just called Who Killed Malcolm X, I think, right?
Yeah.
Came out a couple of years ago. Yeah, and I think even that the documentary filmmakers were instrumental in actually getting some action on dropping or reversing the conviction on one of the men who was initially found guilty of the assassination. He wasn't involved. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for more resources. I saw Netflix, the wiki.
Yes, as David mentioned, I think our crowd has dwindled quite a bit, but our next Messy will be June 2nd, and we'll have a great conversation with David and Dr. Thornhill, aka Reverend Russ, who will be talking about gay Black fatherhood and queerness. Thank you all.
Bye, Jen.
Thank you very much.